Hi everybody, my name is Steve Vitoff and I'm here to present 7 best practices for your online business writing. We're talking chiefly about LinkedIn posts, shorter types of writing, not term papers, but more in terms of correspondence and the way you express yourself online in your business correspondence. Quite different from informal, interpersonal type of correspondence. These 7 best practices, there is some degree of overlap in them, and my dream would be for you to take 2, 3, 4, remember 3 or 4 of these as best you can, have them as your takeaways and let them be your guide. And I assure you that they will help you be better understood. And that's really the goal of all this, to be understood, to be clear, and to have your readers or your correspondent know what you're saying, understand it, and have you express yourself clearly. So let's go through the 7. Number 1, make sure your replies are responsive and comprehensive. So that means take a look at what the other person has just said. They're asking you 3 questions, for example. You don't want to only answer 2 of them. You don't want to be in a position where the next reply that you got back was, oh, you didn't answer this other thing I asked you about. You want to be 100% right there for your correspondent. You want to show them you're listening. You want to show them that you care. Do not pressing send is the worst. Do not press send unless you've really checked that you're being fully responsive, fully comprehensive, that your spelling and grammar is correct. So pause before pressing send, and then when you know you're being responsive right down the line, you can go ahead and press it. The need to be comprehensive in your business writing, it's trickier with online writing because the person isn't there. There's no body language. Oh, well, you forgot this. You've got to. All you have is the words on the screen, so you're not really working with much, and you have to make sure you take it all in and give your correspondent what they're looking for. Number 2. Keep your online correspondence and your online posts business-like. Start off with, hello, I hope you're fine. I hope you've been doing well. Use a formal signature at the end of your posts, your name, your email, maybe your phone number. Stick to business. Don't get into religion or politics or any sort of touchy subject. Don't restrict yourself. Don't put yourself into some sort of box. Oh, this guy has got this political point of view. He's not my kind of person. No, forget that. Leave that stuff for your parties and for your personal life. Don't project some sort of narrow religious or political or touchy sort of dimension about you in your business correspondence. Now, as you get to know people a little better and they get to know you better, maybe you can kind of slip some of that in and it won't become such an issue. But really keep it strictly business, certainly for the early going. Now, number 3 a little bit contradicts number 1 on the comprehensive. Number 3 is try to keep things short. And part of the reason why you want to do that is just because of the visual structure of a screen. Screens aren't so big. You know, you kind of, as soon as you get into a long, dense paragraph, you have to kind of lean in and look at it more closely and make sure you're reading it all. It's a pain. But if you keep your paragraphs short and your sentences short, it's so much easier to be understood, and you will sacrifice nothing in clarity. You can still be super clear, maybe even clearer, if you use very short paragraphs and very short sentences. Many years ago, I started to notice in the New York Post that a lot of their paragraphs were only 1 sentence long. And my first reaction was shock. And then I started to realize, well, this is the modern age. People are getting a little snappy. They want to move things along. That's a great rule for your online business writing. Do not be afraid of 1 sentence paragraphs. keep it to 2 or 3, maybe at the most. I really wouldn't even use a paragraph that has four sentences. I would just try to avoid it. And when you're writing a sentence, and you can just sense it's starting to feel long, you're trying to figure out what you're saying, you're writing a sentence and you're referring back to the beginning of the sentence, it's becoming a complex endeavor. Once a sentence starts to become a complex endeavor, that should send you a big message. The message is, shorten the sentence. It's starting to feel bulky. It's starting to run on. It's getting too complex. You're saying too much for a single sentence to handle. Don't overburden a sentence with more than it's capable of doing. Don't put 13 eggs into a dozen egg carton. You can't do it. It won't fit. And the sentence won't work. You will have failed. You will have rendered yourself unclear. So you want to avoid that. Number 4, avoid nuance, irony, subtlety, humor. Forget it. Don't, unless you're a professional writer, a writer of fiction, you want to avoid subtle and ironic writing in your business correspondence, at least for the first, few exchanges with your correspondence. And it's easy. Everybody knows why. Because you have to be a very sophisticated writer to be subtle in your writing. If I'm talking to you and I say, oh, my friend Charlie, my friend Charlie, I roll my eyes, I look around, I wave my hands, I'm expressing the subtlety and the nuance and the humor and the irony. I have these physical capabilities at my command that I simply don't have when I'm writing. All I have is a keyboard. I have a keyboard and a screen. Those are very limited tools for expressing nuanced thoughts. So try to avoid it. Try not to make jokes. How many times have you had a situation where you made some sort of half-baked joke in your writing online, and the other person says, "What do you mean?" And you go, "Oh, that was a joke." Please, don't waste your correspondent's time by explaining that you were making a joke. It'll take you backwards in the relationship. It's just not worth it. Once you become friends with these people, once you've gone back and forth over a day or two or a week or two, and they start to get to know you a little bit, maybe you can have a little wink now and then, a little joke. But just totally avoid the irony, avoid the subtlety, avoid the nuance, avoid being a Mr. Funny Guy, because it's only gonna run risks of loss. The loss of clarity. You're going to confuse, you're going to distract. You're trying to close a commercial real estate deal. You don't want to distract this person or confuse them or make them, was that a joke? It's just out of place, so please don't do it. Number 5, simple rule, maintain good spelling and good grammar. Now, the good news is that we all use them constantly. Spell check tool, check spelling and grammar, check. Use it, and then even when you see the spell check, make sure the spell check still is conveying what you want to say. There's really, I hate to say it, there's no excuse for a misspelling. I have misspelled things in my business writing. My heart drops to my feet. I go, oh, I can't believe I spelled it that way. And guess what? If you feel thrown off by it, the person you're writing to might feel the same way. And why is that? Take a guess. That's because they could think, first of all, they could not care. It's possible. But if they see you writing a misspelled word, they're saying to themselves, this guy can't even spell this word. How the heck is he going to get my paperwork right on my mortgage application? They're going to project your carelessness on your online tippy-typey LinkedIn post. They're going to project that, and they're going to see you as a careless person in other business settings. You don't want to do that. It's not impossible, but you need to aim to be perfect in this correspondence, with the spelling, with the grammar. And you've seen the advertising for Grammarly. It's all over the place. Grammarly, there are some subscription features, I think, but I think it's largely free. So Grammarly will check your grammar for you. Plus, there's another thing that you can do with your grammar, which is if you are writing a sentence and you're starting to, your inner voice is saying, is that grammar right? Wait a minute. Don't monkey with the grammar. Drop it. Start over. Start that entire sentence over, that paragraph over. Start from the beginning. It'll take you 2 minutes. And start over and express the exact same things in a way that doesn't pose grammar questions. You can do it. It's not difficult to do. It's not difficult to do. And I have, this sounds a little silly, but I have a rule that I think of the people who are reading my writing as wannabe high school English teachers, looking for grammar errors, looking for spelling errors. I don't think of them as Mr. Casual, my brother or my friend. I think of them as high school English teachers, and I particularly think of them as one high school English teacher. Mrs. Grace Sullivan went to high school in Massapequa. She was my 12th grade English teacher. I think of her as a Stanley Cup goalie, a hockey goalie. She let nothing get past her. You couldn't get away with an error. You couldn't get away with a typo or spelling at all. So it sounds like a joke. It is kind of a joke, but when I'm doing my business writing, all of my business writing, I think of my correspondent and my reader as Mrs. Sullivan, as somebody who's looking for my errors and going to catch them and make judgments about me based on my writing. Oh boy, you don't want that. You want to have them make judgments based on your writing when your writing is excellent. That's what you want. Now, in the real world, it's true. I would say maybe 1 out of 15 people that we deal with in our business writing are going to have that level of care about grammar errors and spelling errors. It's not a huge proportion, but it's that one person that you want to close a deal with who is basically Mrs. Sullivan in disguise, out to get you, out to make judgments about you because you got the spelling wrong, because you got the grammar wrong. Number 6, it's kind of a 2-part best practice. Aim for visual clarity and content clarity. Be clear. It's not hard. Easier to be clear with short sentences, by the way. Those bulky paragraphs, bulky, endless sentences, they're unclear. You've got to read them twice. Don't make anybody that's reading your stuff, if they're reading it twice, that means something wasn't clear the first time around. And there's some very, very simple and useful tools online that I use constantly to enhance clarity. And they're both visual. The same tools are enhancing clarity both in a visual way and also in terms of comprehension. And these are bullets, so bullet points. I would use bullet points. The minute you think you might need to bullet something, that's a yes. That means you do have to bullet something. And that'll make it clear. It makes it visually clearer. It's the words are not so densely packed into the paragraph. So when you start to feel the need for bullets, that's almost always a signal that yes, you do need them. The other thing that's a little tricky is abbreviations. Let's look at commercial real estate. Oh, what was the LTV? What kind of LTC did you get on that? Was this an SNF? What kind of property was this? You've got all these abbreviations. Now, it's true. A lot of the people that you correspond with in your business writing, they're going to know what a skilled nursing facility is in essence. They're going to know that off the top of their head. But a lot of them won't. So give people a break. If I already know what a skilled nursing facility is, okay, maybe I'll be... I see it spelled out, and I'll say, well, the guy doesn't think I know what that is. But for every person like that, there's 10 people who don't know what it is, and they do need it spelled out. I always tilt on the side of conservatism and caution, and I assume the people I'm dealing with do not know it. Now, there may be some exceptions. It may not work in every instance, but let's just say big picture. Be very cautious about the use of abbreviations, and think about you may need to spell out abbreviations and not just use them. I would avoid insider baseball industry jargon. And here's an important tool that I use. It's a little hard to describe. Even when my wonderfully short sentences, when I have a short sentence and I want to try to be clearer, I do two little hyphens. The tomatoes were delicious, ... and also nutritious. Better than the tomatoes were delicious and nutritious. It just clarifies it. I'm kind of saying two things, so I'm kind of using these hyphens to make them stand off and stand alone. And that's what I'm talking about, is where visual clarity in your online writing enhances intellectual clarity. Another thing that I use everybody uses, is called an ellipsis, which is like, I use 3 double-spaced periods, ... I do it in my Slack. I do it in my Facebook messages, Facebook posts. It just visually lays things out better. Now, it's possible because I'm older that that appetite for visual clarity might be a little higher because it's just kind of easier for me to read. I don't really know, but visual clarity is attainable in your online writing. With the three periods, with the 2 hyphens, ways to just kind of break it up, visually break it up. There is an online resource called WordTune. It's also largely free. And what you do with WordTune is that you enter a sentence, clickety-clack, and then out come 3 or 4 sentences that are different ways of saying the same thing. So if you find yourself having difficulty with clarity, you enter it into WordTune. You can look at some options, and they'll give you some good suggestions as to how to express yourself more clearly. Finally, number 7, this is avoid cute and playful language and emojis. Now, I have to admit, I'm very conservative about this. I think it's also because I'm a little older, but I never use emojis, and that's not a joke. I never use emojis. It's me because I'm really kind of Mrs. Sullivan. I have confidence enough in my words that I don't feel I need pictures to make my point. If you have to put a smiley face to make your point, that means you're trying to have a little nuance or cuteness. It's okay, you can do it, but I would try to avoid it. I would definitely absolutely avoid emojis in your first initial correspondence with people, because you don't want to come off as too young, too cute, too informal, too hee-hee, too ha-ha, wink-wink, LOL, be right back, the ROFL. you want to really avoid the cuteness and the funniness, and project an atmosphere of formality in your business writing, in your business posts. So that's my presentation, and I want to encourage you to write clearly. Let the visual tools at your disposal help you write more clearly. I want you to be understood by the people who read what you're writing. I want them to see you as a formal, professional business person who speaks business type style and expresses themselves in that way. We all know, as relationships evolve between us, how many people do you work with in business that when you first met them, they were like completely stiff? They're really stiffs. And then in a matter of days or weeks or maybe a month, they become friends. They know you, like I said, your sports, family, your hobbies. Oh, how did the hot air balloon race go? You know, you've developed a relationship. That's when you get to that point. You throw in the cute, you throw the emoji, the LOL, maybe trickle it in a little tiny bit, not overboard. But up until then, keep it straight arrow, keep it straight edge, keep it businesslike. Be clear, be grammatical, check your spelling, Get your point across clearly and succinctly, and I guarantee you, you will be understood, you will be more successful as a business writer, and you will be more successful in business. There you go. Thanks very much, and good luck.